Hey guys, so this is a re-upload of a video that I had already posted some time ago because fucking Paramount decided to strike down my Transformers review for no fucking reason at all. So the video is going to be like heavily blurred to avoid copyright detection, so sorry if you guys can't see anything. This will just be a video better off where you just put it off in the background, so sorry for the inconvenience, fellas. The Transformers is often a divisive franchise with how many versions of itself exist. Sometimes the stuff Hasbro can pump out, it can hit good, and others, not so much. There hasn't always been one continuity in the franchise, since every few years the franchise gets a reboot in some way, shape, or form, whether it's a game, movie, or show. It honestly depends on what Hasbro is cooking, and it isn't just Transformers. Ugh. Talk about you some other day. But back to the point is that the Transformers hasn't had one established and direct canon universe, so we all know to split everything into its respective universes and continuities. The early 2000s of Transformers was a peak of the franchise for sure because we had 3 banger shows back to back, which we all know as the Unicron trilogy, which is undeniably one of the best continuities in my opinion. How could Transformers not go up from this point? Transformers Cybertron had finally concluded in 2006, and by that point, the fanbase didn't know what to expect. But then rumors started floating about that michealbay was going to be directing a live-action adaptation of the franchise, and to say that people was nervous was definitely an understatement. Leaks showed early designs of Optimus and the other boss, and it just looked awful to some people. Some even going as far as sending michealbay death threats over it. Until we got the first trailer in June of 2007, and later that year, we got my personal favorite movie, 2007's Transformers. The movie begins with an opening monologue from Optimus about the basics such as the war in Cybertron, and the movie's main plot MacGuffin, the Allspark. Its entire gimmick is that it can create worlds and fill them with life, but if it fell into the wrong hands, it could cause some serious damage. More on that in a moment. But the main reason why Optimus tells us this is because sometime during the Allspark's journey in space, it led for the artifact to come into our solar system and, well, crash down on Earth in the Arctic. Which then, we get one of my favorite title drops in a movie by far. We cut to the present day of somewhere in Qatar, or the Middle East for you uncultured swines. There's an Osprey carrying a group of soldiers back to a military base, but most importantly, we have 2 of our important characters we meet during the scene. Captain William Lennox and Robert Epps, 2 Marines stationed at a US military base set up in the area. Once the Osprey lands, we get more view of the base and how lively it is, so pretty neat first impressions of our human protagonist. Although something in the base catches their eye, being a Sikorsky MH-53 helicopter traveling through the area. But the problem with this is that being that the tail of the chopper, 4500X, was shot down 3 months prior, and this is confirmed by someone in the communications area of the base, causing Colonel Sharp, another recurring character, to send out 2 F-22 jets to escort the helicopter to the base. This is the new Decepticon Blackout. He never had a mainline appearance other than Energon, but even then he didn't have a personality and much character in general. Once he lands in the base, the Colonel tells him to power himself off, since they still believe him to be a chopper and not a 10-foot murder robot.
Blackout's taller than that, you stupid bitch!
So once he powers down, he begins to transform, and humans make the one mistake that you should never make: shoot at a Decepticon, because right as Blackout is up, he just starts fucking everything up. I mean, he's blowing up parts of the military base with a shockwave attack, and he just has his cannons that incinerates everything he shoots at. He rips off the roof of the communications area and begins trying to hijack a bunch of data from the base. More on that later. They end up cutting him off, so he goes back to just blowing shit up. So obviously, as any same military base would, they all run for their lives while trying to return as much fire as physically possible, and they do land a few good hits on him, making his chest cannon dysfunctional and making him deploy Scorponok, a mean Cybertronian scorpion motherfucker. Not like the version in G1. He's a Titan there. This one is just a smaller fella paired up with Blackout. And afterwards, Blackout just wrecks everything else. Then we cut to a high school where we meet the single-headed best human protagonist in Transformers history, Sam Witwicky. Sam is played by Shia LaBeouf, or the Just Do It guy if you're on the internet in 2016.
Just do it!
The last name might give you some memory, as there was Spike and Spark plugged from G1 with the Witwicky in their last name, but trust me, this Witwicky does not work at an oil rig like his 80s counterpart. Sam is the stereotypical nerd-test weird kid that gets picked on, yada yada yada, exposition. The whole deal is that his dad's gonna get him a new car if he does well on a test, and then, boom. But what Sam talks about here is pretty important since his great-great-grandfather made a discovery in the Arctic some years ago, but we'll be back on that later. So then, here we are, Bobby Bolivia's used car lot, and he is one of the best characters for the simple fact that he's played by Bernie Mac, the single-handed best comedian that I have ever seen. So Sam gets a rinky-dink 77 Camaro from the lot, but guess what? Conveniently, the car he buys is an Autobot. Bumblebee. Bumblebee as a character has some tricky issues during the early 2000s because of the fact that Hasbro was facing legal issues against Bumblebee Foods, so they couldn't use the name of the character, which is why we got Hotshot and Armada and the entire Unicron trilogy, because he had to be the stand-in for Bumblebee. But back to the movie is that Bumblebee is the character that's supposed to be Sam's friend, or the character that everyone relates to, because he's the younger Autobot. you know. But of course, Sam doesn't know this, as he just sees it as a regular old Camaro that he can get for $4,000 from Bolivia. We then come to the Pentagon, where the people are given a recap of what happened in the first bit of the movie with the airbase attack. So it's just rambling about how they're going to start searching far and wide for who did this, but we know who did it, obviously. Our big helicopter boy Blackout. Their only lead being the sound he left with trying to get the data from the base, as mentioned earlier. So yada yada yada, they work, and we get slice of life scene with Sam and his parents before driving off the car to a party where we get one of the only other bits of appeal this movie had back then, and that was Megan Fox, that was playing this female secondary protagonist of the movie, and soon-to-be love interest of old Woodwicky, michealbay. I swear, they had her doing some wild shit, and for a movie in 2007 meant to promote toys for kids, this had a lot of that teen to early adult appeal when it came to Megan Fox in this movie. But again, it's a fucking Michael Bay movie, so like, what do you expect? So Bumblebee, being the slick dog he is, plays some music to motivate Sam to drive Michaela home. Literally just telling his homeboy to fuck off, and then they have the average teen talk, and Bumblebee trying to get him to smash in the most awkward way possible. So then we cut to Air Force One, and who else is on there but a fucking Decepticon, Frenzy. A mean child-sized Decepticon with discs that'll cut the fuck out of you with little microguns. He's doing the exact thing that Blackout was trying to do with getting data about a specific file, but this time they came prepared as some British chick picks up what Frenzy is doing, and they cut him off with the data, but the file in question is something called Project Iceman. More on that later. So Frenzy fucks up a few guys before Air Force One is grounded, and he's able to get off undetected into a police vehicle. This is also a new Decepticon called Barricade, but the reason why this is interesting is because they have their eyes set on Sam Witwicky, and the glasses turn out to have Cybertronian written on them, which conveniently brings us back to Sam, where Bumblebee starts himself up and begins driving up to God knows where, which wakes Sam up, and he begins to pursue Bumblebee, thinking that someone actually just jacked his car, as any sane person would think if their car would magically start driving off. So then Sam sees that turns out his car was never stolen, and is actually a big-ass robot, which then he gets fucked with by Bumblebee, and then he runs away before the cops show up, thinking that he's the guy that stole Sam's car, even though that is Sam. Cops movies are so fucking stupid, Jesus Christ. Which afterwards we get more stuff with the analyst chick and some police interrogation. Just filler scenes to me. We then finally go back to the Socksent boys to survive the attack, and is heading for a small bridge that has a telephone line that might be able to get them some backup or rescue after Blackout left the place in ruins. But now is when Scorponok starts to strike, as he hunts down and begins to attack the military boys, with one of them dying and getting fucking wrecked as they all make their way into the village, where a gunfight breaks out between the two groups. Which in my opinion has one of the funniest scenes in the entire movie to me.
Pocket! Which pocket? My black pocket! You got 10 back pocket! Left cheek! Left cheek! Left cheek!
The team is able to call backup, with the tides turning in their favor, with them being able to do more damage to Scorponok, as they use 105 saber rounds to even damage this fucker, causing him to flee as all of them get airlifted out of Qatar and are en route back to the US, with them immediately being debriefed when they touch down. So, Analyst Girl, which her name is Maggie, I just call her that, makes a copy of the signal Frenzy made and goes to some dude's house called Glenn, and anyone who hasn't been living under a rock knows the scene because of him screaming. I'm so glad this became a meme because of Transformers. Which of course then we go back to Sam, and Bumblebee's just being weird and following Sam around since he lost his bike at the train yard and he's using his mom's bike to run away from Bumblebee. Sam running back into Michaela again before Sam heads off again, this time with her following behind him. Until eventually Sam goes under a bridge, and guess what? Sam runs into Barricade and gets tripped by him before we get, in my opinion, the second best transformation scene in the entire movie. Which is any sane person would. Sam tries to book it out of there, but of course Barricade catch up because he's so fucking massive. Pause. And then we get another one of the memes that this movie spawned.
Are you username ladiesman217?
I don't know what you're talking
Are
about.
you username ladiesman217?
Yeah?
Where is the eBay item 21153? Where are the bosses?
So Sam books it again, and Michaela decides to follow Sam, and then Sam tackles her to the ground to obviously stop her from getting in Barricade's way, as he is right behind him. But for the sake of plot convenience, Bumblebee saves the two, and we get one of my personal favorite scenes, period. This whole set piece just has that 2007 action movie appeal, and I just fucking love it to death. So after the chasing, they finally lose Barricade temporarily before they book it again, Bumblebee hitting this sick-ass drift and injecting Sam and Michaela. Now, remember when I said Barricade's transformation was the second best one? Well, this one is the third best. Got you there, didn't I? But this is where they actually kicked off to the full Bumblebee and Barricade, so I can just duke it out, and it's just... It is just so peak, like absolute cinema. I love this fight scene through and through. I remember skipping to this part of the movie as a kid because back then I had a DVD player in my room and this was the one movie I watched non-stop. So I would just skip to the boring parts and just go to this scene. But I've learned to appreciate the other parts more and more as I've grown up. I still have the case, but both discs are gone unfortunately. But it's still cool to have it around though. But back to the point is Bumblebee and Barricade just start duking it the fuck out and it's absolute cinema, bro. Barricade sends Frenzy out to catch Sam, but this scene is more so boring to me. Sam just gets his pants taken off in a weirdly funny way before Michaela finds a saw and cuts Frenzy's head off. Before Sam punts it, and oh my god, it's that one scream that everybody uses. So then now, this is the first time that Bumblebee, Sam, and Michaela meet each other for the actual first time, with him in robot mode. This is also the start of a new trend with Bumblebee, is that he's either mute, or uses either beeps and buzzes, or uses the radio to communicate with people. I don't get the reason why they did this. It's always been kind of a dud to me, but, you know, it's 2007, so they do anything at this point. But either way, this kicks off Sam and Bumblebee's friendship throughout the first 3 movies, and I've always enjoyed the sort of big brother guardian, little brother dynamic they kind of have going forward. So then we get a little driving sequence with a little bit of human romance before Michaela thinks it's bright to comment on how Bumblebee is a big-ass robot, yet changes back into a 77 Camaro, which pisses him off and has him drive off, but then we see he decides to scan a new form.
Wait a minute, Kung Fu Panda!
But now it's time for the second act of the movie where we see 4 meters coming down, which is the next part of Bumblebee's Autobot Patriots coming down to Earth, which we get a brief montage of them gathering their vehicle forms. And this is the part when they finally meet them, and as they all drive into an alley where Bumblebee took Sam and Michaela, and finally, this is the best transformation sequence in the entire movie.
Are you Samuel James Witwicky, descendant of Archibald Witwicky?
So this is where we meet our main group of Autobots for the movie: Optimus Prime, Jazz, Ironhide, Ratchet, and Bumblebee, who we've already met. Optimus seems to know who Sam is to introduce himself and the other Autobots to Sam and Michaela, each of them with their own special skills and abilities. So Optimus begins to tell them about the Cybertronian War, the Decepticons, Megatron, and everything. But the reason why the Autobots are here is because if you remember, Sam's grandfather's glasses are important. This is due to the fact that during his expedition of the Arctic Circle, he came across a frozen Megatron who was about to get the Allspark, but froze over once he entered the polar regions of our planet. Although he tried to touch Megatron with turn on his navigation systems, having Megatron imprint a code to the Allspark's location onto his glasses, which is why they're so important in the first place. Basically, if Sam gives the Autobots the glasses, then the day is saved. Then we see Glenn and Maggie again with them being interrogated, and it plays out as you probably would expect with the scene of these two together. So of course, Sam gets back home and tries to get inside before having a sequence of him talking with his dad, but this is where I begin to judge the Autobots a lot more. They come off more as, more or less bumbling idiots, since Optimus literally steps on their garden fountain and all of them are just waddling around doing extremely stupid things. I'm surprised that Sam's parents didn't notice them, because I would have noticed a 20-foot robot in my backyard. I mean, Ratchet literally, like, bumps into a fucking, like, telephone pole. How the fuck do you manage that? So obviously, because of everything that's happening, the government pulls up, or more or less Sector 7, an organization with heavy ties to what Sam's grandfather discovered. Agent Simmons is possibly one of my favorite characters, mainly because John Turturro is such a good actor, and the way he plays his character is just magnificent. So they end up taking Sam away with Simmons, interrogating Sam about what he saw when Bumblebee transformed with the Autobot symbol in the sky. He tries to play it off with Michaela backing up before dropping that her dad is on parole and she is guilty of a few crimes already herself. So basically, if they don't say anything about Bumblebee, then they're absolutely boned. But thankfully, in the nick of time, Optimus and co. save them from Sector 7. Optimus obviously has his suspicions since Simmons seems awfully calm about the fact that that giant red and blue robot is standing in front of him, so they begin to interrogate Simmons, and then, you know, we get the scene of Bumblebee pissing on Simmons.
Bumblebee, stop lubricating the man.
Get that thing to stop, huh?
God, you gotta love Michael Bay movies and some of the gags that they do with this shit. So obviously Sector 7 isn't going to let them off scot-free, since they ended up calling back up, which leads to the Autobots beginning to retreat. Optimus takes him and Michaela on a little adventure, but it ultimately leads to them falling down, but Bumblebee ends up catching them before they impact with the ground. But guess what? At least the Bumblebee getting captured by Sector 7. Real smooth move, Bumblebee. But to be fair, he saves him and Michaela's lives, so they get captured, and then at least Optimus picking up the glasses that they ended up dropping. We cut back to Secretary Killer that the entire line across the globe is down from the virus frenzy and Blackout injected into the military database. This is where we meet Tom Banachek. He's the head of Sector 7 that knows Keller some info about the Mars rover that deems a failure and was known to the public, but was actually a cover-up as the mission had gotten an image of a Cybertronian attacking the rover. Fans have theorized that this is Starscream, but I'm not sure if this is 100% true. But then this finally results in the final conclusion where all of our main human protagonists meet up at the Sector 7 HQ under the Hoover Dam in Nevada. The Autobots end up at a place a bit far from the dam where they finally use the glass to decipher the code to where the Allspark is, to which they will find it. But then we get one of my more favorite scenes of the Autobots calling into question why they're fighting for the humans to fight the fact that they've captured and are experimenting on Bumblebee. But Optimus remarks on the fact that they weren't any different from us because of the fact that they've been fighting a million-year-long war with the Decepticons. So of course Optimus sees the good in the humans and that they have a lot to learn, but he sees the potential of humans that can be achieved. Optimus also goes on to remark how he's willing to lay down his own life by merging the Allspark with his spark to make sure it doesn't fall into the Decepticon hands. We get another scene with Simmons and Sam. I love Simmons, as mentioned before, because I think John Turturro, period, is just an amazing actor through and through. This is where things begin to get a bit bizarre, however. This is the point where we learn that, turns out, not only have Sector 7 been holding Bumblebee ever since they got him, but they also have Megatron in fucking cryostasis. Dude, do I even need to say why that's a bad idea? Sam knows who Megatron is because looking at him, he knows the projection that Optimus showed him, so he knows what Megatron looks like. But guess what? They also have the literal fucking Allspark in the chamber right next to Megatron! Like, oh my god. Dude, I understand that Sector 7 didn't know that Megatron was a threat, but like, come on, man, use a bit of common sense and maybe move him to somewhere else. And then we get a little scene of them using the Allspark to turn the phone into a Cybertronian with the power of the cube, which I find to be hilarious. Look at him, he even has a little missile launcher with guns. But this is something to take note of, is that all Cybertronians, at least in the Bay Universe's default program, is kill anything but themselves with extreme prejudice. So they zap this little fucker, and then boom, he's dead. Now in a scene prior to this, we see that Frenzy detaches from Michaela's purse into the Allspark room, where his body is regenerated before telling the other Decepticons where the Allspark is. So now Starscream pulls up and fucks up their power generators, which means Megatron's chamber is now out of power, and he is about to wake the fuck up. Frenzy ends up hijacking a terminal to speed up the process of Megatron defrosting. So naturally, everyone goes to the arms room to get loaded up for what's to come. Sam, of course, says to them they should get Bumblebee out since he knows what to do with the cube, but then Simmons refuses, which pitches Lennox off, and then...
Young man, take him to his car. Drop it. Whoa, whoa, whoa!
So eventually they give in and they end up releasing Bumblebee, which of course he is immediately on edge and ready to fire, but then Sam takes him to the Allspark to where he's shrunk down to a smaller size and ready to be transported. So then they devise a plan to take the Allspark to the city where it'll be airlifted while Maggie, Keller, Glenn, and Simmons stay behind to catch the Air Force on what's going to happen. But I have to ask, why are you taking the Allspark to LA? Or, sorry, Mission City, as it's called in the universe. So once everyone begins to divide, Megatron finally awakens. Megatron breaks free and off-rip he just starts destroying everything in his path before eventually leaving the hangar and regrouping outside with Starscream, which of whom tells Megatron that the humans were able to flee with the Allspark. Megatron tells his Green Starscream before telling him to go after them. We cut back to the gang that was left at the Sector 7 HQ where they begin to set up the device to contact the Air Force before they just begin to look around for shit. Bumblebee and Co are en route to Mission City, which when the Autobots pass by them, they all reunite and make way for Mission City. We then immediately cut back to them trying to set up the radio before Frenzy starts banging on the door with all of them except for Glenn getting up to keep Frenzy from out of the room. They try to fend them off with fire and shotgun shells while Glenn puts a code in for the Air Force to have authorization to give them air support in Mission City. Which we then cut back to the Autobots on the highway where they're being pursued by Barricade and Bone Crusher. And Bone Crusher is just wrecking everything, just flipping people's cars over like nobody's business. But after a while, Bone Crusher transforms and immediately starts heading forward, which prompts Optimus to do the same, and then Bone Crusher and Prime to duke it out. This also marks the beginning of the brutal executions Optimus does to all of his enemies throughout Bayformers. Yeah, for a movie about marketing toys for kids, this was pretty brutal. The Sector 7 crew is still fending off Frenzy to the best of their ability before they shoot him out of the events. And then they all have a little childish skirmish before eventually Frenzy kills himself with his own attack.
I see.
The order for the Air Force to back up the heroes has gone through, and now the Air Force is en route to the city. Everyone makes it, and then they pop smoke to signal the Air Force to where they are, but oops, guess what? The only F-22 in the city is fucking Starscream, and thankfully Iron Knight was able to call it out. But it doesn't matter as Bumblebee and Iron Knight get blasted. Iron Knight is obviously fine because he's a big boy, but Bumblebee is fucking crippled now, so that sucks. So then Sam and Bumblebee have a small sad moment of them crawling helplessly, but guess what? Fucking Brawl shows up and roasts them up by shooting at everybody. So then the action's cranked up to full with Iron Knight, Jazz, and Ratchet just beginning to jump the fuck out of Brawl until he gets knocked out for a while. But then the tide is turning when guess what? Megatron shows up and then blasts Jazz in one hit and has him folded out. And it's so sad because this is the first Autobot death of the movie and it's Jazz. I mean, he gets ripped in half by Megatron. That is brutal. And then Brawl gets back up and Blackout finally pulls up. Lennox just knows they're fucking cooked. So since Bumblebee is crippled and Jazz is dead, they come up with a new plan to get Sam to a high building and pop a flare to signal the Blackhawk chopper to pick up the Allspark. And Michaela hooks Bumblebee up to a tow truck and then hightails it out of there. Iron Knight ensuring that him and Ratchet will escort Sam to the building, to which they all set into motion when everyone's motives. The military stays back to fight Brawl. Ratchet and Iron Knight protect Sam, and Michaela tows Bumblebee away from the area. And finally, after some time, Optimus finally arrives and saves one of the better transformations, but it isn't the best, since you know I've already said the best earlier. And now it's time for the Clash of Two Titans as it was always written, an accidental Doom Eternal reference, I'm sure. Megatron transforms and flies at Optimus, with Optimus grabbing onto him as he gets dragged around by Megatron before they crash on the street, with them having a small argument before Megatron just domes Prime and sends his ass flying into a building. Sam is still running for dear life before Starscream pulls up and then just wrecks Ratchet and Iron Knight before dipping, meaning that Sam is now defenseless and has to keep running on his own. And guess what? Right as this happens, Megatron is hot on his fucking trail and is about to try to dome Sam and get the Allspark. Sam isn't tripping and causes a chain reaction with the Allspark that sends a shockwave and turns 3 things into Cybertronians. A vending machine, Xbox, and car? Is this supposed to be one of the dreads that appear in Dark of the Moon, or am I just dumb? Megatron is hot on Sam's trail still and just busts into the building and exclaims that he's there. Apparently Cybertronians can smell since Megatron says it and Iron Knight also does, but we'll talk about that when we reach that weird-ass sequel. Michaela is in an alley with her just by herself with the pressure of the situation they are in sitting in. But she ends up turning to Bumblebee, which he assures her before she begins to drive, and then she tells Bumblebee,
I'll drive, you shoot!
God, that line is fire. So now it's a tag team match between Bumblebee and the Army versus Brawl, and they finally hit the finishing blow on Brawl for him, finally finning dead. Sam finally reaches the rooftop and pops a flare, but guess who's there? Fucking Starscream. And before Sam gets past the Allspark, Starscream fires a missile and the chopper goes down. Optimus is on his way to try to reach Sam before Megatron does, but as that is happening, Megatron reaches the roof. Megatron begins to press Sam for the Allspark, saying he'll spare his life and make him his pet if he gives him the Allspark. But Sam refuses before Megatron sends him flying off the roof. But thankfully, for plot convenience, Optimus catches Sam before descending down the building, but Megatron catches up and tackles Prime off the building. Optimus then tells Sam if he can't beat Megatron, then put the Allspark into his chest. So now it's time for round 2 of Megatron vs. Optimus. But even then, Optimus is still getting domed. Everybody who has seen the Bayformers movies universally knows that 07 Megatron is the strongest version of himself throughout all 5 movies. And it shows with how much he's just tossing Prime around like a rag doll. So then we got the retreating Army boys, and then Blackout shows up and is about to jump Optimus with Megatron before they end up devising a plan to take him down. Lennox grabs a bike and plans on hitting him from below while they laser Blackout up for the F-22s to hit. But while lasering Blackout, he notices it and immediately starts fighting with them before the jets show up and launch their missiles at Blackout, and Lennox hitting a nasty cross shot on Blackout, with him being down for the count. Optimus is still getting his shit caved in, so yeah, that's happening. The second wave of F-22s are on the way, but guess who's wanting to crash the party? And it's fucking Starscream as he begins to take a few out before they start doming him, and after this point, we don't see Starscream for the rest of the movie. And now the tides are turning in the good guy's favor with the jets raining down on Megatron, causing him to start stumbling and fumbling. He tries to get the Allspark one last time before Optimus trips him, and Megatron demands Sam to give him the Allspark, yada yada yada, and then it leads to Optimus begging Sam to put the Allspark into the chest. But then Sam does something smart, which is surprising of any movie protagonist. So since he took the knowledge that fusing the Allspark with a Cybertronian's chest will kill it, he thinks it'll apply to Megatron, which culminates in... Megatron is now dead, the Allspark destroyed, and the day is saved. Everyone regroups with each other, with Iron Knight carrying Jazz's separated body and all of them mourning the loss of him. And then Bumblebee speaks up, saying that he wishes to stay with Sam, but for some reason in the following movie he loses his voice again. Maybe it's because I didn't expect to be making a sequels for this movie. There's a small piece of the Allspark left, which Optimus ends up taking, and after the events of Mission City are over, Sector 7 is ordered to be terminated, and for good reason, since they were harboring Megatron in a basement for over 90 years, as well as for all the dead Decepticons to be dropped into the ocean, specifically the Laurentian Abyss, where the pressure there will probably rip them apart, leaving nothing behind. And then we get a monologue from Optimus to any other Autobots out in space for them to come to Earth as their new home. Bumblebee is repaired, and Sam gets with Michaela, and then What I've Done by Linkin Park plays for the end credits scene. Good way to finish a movie in 2007. Part of the post-credit scene shows Starscream leaving Earth's atmosphere and into space, which does segue into the second movie, but that is a tale for another day. So, what do I make of this movie? The 2007 Transformers film is a movie I hold dear to me since it's what got me into the franchise and led me to be a fan ever since. I own a good amount of figures too, and hey, maybe when I get a job and I can start collecting figures. But only time will tell. The movie is good to me, and it will always have a special place in my heart. I want to thank all of you for watching this video, and always if you enjoyed, want to drop a like and sub, and hey, if you guys want, I'll review the 2007 tie-in game for a little something special for you guys too. Alright then, see you next time.